User access security limits access to your application to only certain users. If we enter the sample application here, we'll see an example of user access security, and once turned on, system access security causes the login form to come up where the user must enter an ID and password before being able to access the application. By default, the user has 3 chances to enter a correct ID and passwords before they are bumped out of this form and are not allowed to enter the application. If they click OK and they have a valid ID password, they're allowed to enter the application. Before you turn on user access security, you need to set up users on the users form. Let's take a look at the data that you enter for each user. The number field is simply here for your use. If you need to keep track of some information related to the user, you can do that in this field. The next field is a 20-character field where you enter the user's ID. The status checkbox identifies whether or not the user is currently logged in. I logged in as user, and therefore the login status checkbox is checked. If I go to the next record, obviously I didn't log in as this user, and therefore the status shows unchecked. The multiple checkbox gives the user the ability to log into the application more than once at the same time from different computers. There should at least be one user who has this right, because what can happen is that if users are in the application and a power outage or something happens in which the user does not follow the normal exit procedure of the application, and if the user's login status does not get unchecked, the next time if they do not have the multiple check, the next time they try to come into the application, if they're already marked as logged in, then they will not be allowed to log in again, even though in reality they are not logged in already. What happens is that when the user logs in, their user record is marked as them being logged in, and then when they exit the application, their user record is unmarked. So if they do not follow the normal procedure for exiting the application, like I mentioned, if there's a power outage or something and their computer goes down, then that user won't be able to log in again until some user comes into the application, comes into the user form, and unchecks the user's login status and then saves the record. That user will then be able to log into the application. So therefore, somebody needs to be able to always get into the application. So at least one person should have this multiple checkbox checked so that at least they can come in and uncheck the status checkbox of those users who did not exit the application normally and therefore need to have this checkbox unchecked. The report manager type allows for the specification of a particular type of report manager to be run by this user, so that if on the admin environment form the report manager type is set to by user, then each user's setting determines what type of report manager they will use. The type that allows them to edit and run reports, or the type that only allows them to run reports. Next is the name fields, first, middle, and last names to identify the user. Then the authorization box here, field help edit. This is the help text that's brought up when the user presses F3 while the control is on a particular, the focus is on a particular control. So this is field level help text stored in the data dictionary and is intended to be used to help the user decide what value, what data to enter into a field. The global conditions add edit gives this user the right to add and edit global conditions. For instance, on the if I bring up a form and bring up one of the condition builder forms, for instance, like the locate, this specifies whether or not when the user creates a condition and saves that condition, is it saved specifically for that user, or is a global condition created in which all users will then see when they bring up this form, this condition builder form. So if they have the right, then through the user form they can create global conditions that will be seen and used by all users. Otherwise, the conditions they create are only visible and can be used by them. So that's the global conditions. And then the pick list add edit has to do with whether or not that user can add and edit the pick list table directly through the pick list form. For instance, if I go to deductions and other earnings, if I'm on a field and I bring up the pick list by pressing F2, that add edit right causes the add and edit buttons to be added to the pick list so that I can modify the table view or cursor adapter seen in the pick list if I decide I need to do so. For instance, if the code 008 is missing, instead of exiting and going and finding the form that allows me to add to this particular table, I can simply click Add, create the record, and save. Oh, I need a name. And that entry is then entered into the field. So again, that right gives me the ability to add and edit the lookup table view or cursor adapter, the pick list table view or cursor adapter, directly through the pick list form. It also enables, if I right click on the control, it also enables the add new and edit options on the right click shortcut menu. Alright, so that's the add edit pick list. The access level field is used to control access to the users form as well as the passwords form. For instance, the passwords form where you can actually see the private passwords of each user. By default, the access level is blank for all users.